Remember our former Commander-in-Chief Barack Obama? Well, he's on vacation. After 8 years in the Oval Office, he's decided to unwind with billionaire Richard Branson. His recent kite-surfing adventure seems to be the only news item competing with President Donald Trump's Muslim ban and the opposition to it, in addition to the contentious confirmation of Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary. Now, attention is turning to Obama's post-presidency antics as we move further into the Trump administration. Now, the weekend that Trump took the oath of office, this country saw the largest political mobilization in U.S. history. And with each passing day of his presidency, many Americans are growing increasingly outraged by the actions of the real estate mogul turned reality TV star turned commander-in-chief. And while the Democratic Party and the establishment left mourn Obama's exit from the White House, they're warning that we've entered into a period of fascism in U.S. history. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have taken to the streets in protest. They're also mobilizing online and over the phone in a swell of engagement and outrage that seems unprecedented in recent memory. And to a certain point, their outrage is justified. Our president is a man who campaigned on a platform of bigotry. He drove racism, Islamophobia, misogyny, and xenophobia into the mainstream, railing against political correctness and bringing into stark contrast the deep divisions among us. Now, Trump is already waging a war on the media and issuing orders that put a blanket ban on people from 7 Muslim-majority countries, nations that have been a target of U.S. imperialism and destabilization for more than 30 years. Now, these orders are completely illegal, unconstitutional, and frankly, morally reprehensible. He could even breach international law if the U.S. Embassy in Israel is moved from Tel Aviv to occupied East Jerusalem, as he recently gave the green light for Israel to do so. And when it comes to Palestine, Trump has said that a Palestinian state wouldn't even be created under his watch. Now, Trump has put Iran on notice, whatever that means, for an attack on the U.S. Navy, which the Islamic Republic never even committed. This has driven the United States into the closest military confrontation with Iran since 1979. Now, millions of people gathered around the world in Women's March protests the day after Trump's inauguration. But as these protests swelled, one perhaps couldn't help but wonder why there wasn't any mobilization even remotely on this scale in the previous 8 years during Obama's presidency. Perhaps it's not too late to remind those who blindly followed the former commander-in-cool, who stamped each of his authoritarian policies with the platitudes of hope and change, of just how Trump's new policies wouldn't even be possible without the full dictator's toolkit that Obama and the Democratic Party prepared for him. I mean, it was Obama who dropped more than 26,000 bombs on foreign soil just last year. And it was Obama who destabilized and destroyed the very countries these victims of war are fleeing. And it was Obama who simultaneously approved arms sales to terror groups and dictatorships while expanding the war on terror. And it was Obama who expanded Bush's drone war, a practically invisible war in which thousands of people have been killed without trial. Worse yet, many of those killed in drone strikes in countries like Yemen, Pakistan, Somalia, and Afghanistan have been civilians whose only crime was being in the wrong place in the wrong time. And it was Obama who gave Israel a record rate of $6 billion in military aid, more than any other administration in U.S. history, only emboldening the apartheid state. It was Obama who waged an unprecedented war on whistleblowers. And during Obama's presidency, there were 8 prosecutions under the 1917 Espionage Act. That's more than double those under all previous administrations combined. And it was Obama who continued to expand executive powers, including the ability to declare war unilaterally, meaning a president wouldn't even need congressional approval. That had already been dramatically expanded under the George W. Bush administration. And it was Obama who expanded Bush's surveillance state right up until the very end. Obama's use of a secret court system known as the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court allowed his administration to ignore a federal court ruling that found bulk surveillance illegal. This ended up granting the National Security Agency the power to collect the phone records of millions of Americans. And with all the outrage over Trump's so-called Muslim ban and other policies, it seems logical that there would have been a similar blowback when Obama created the conditions for the death and destruction which refugees now hope to flee. Yet the very same people calling executive overreach under Bush suddenly got quiet when Obama, the Democrat, came into office. But now that a Republican, Donald Trump, is behind the wheel of this enormous vehicle of practically unlimited power, those once quiet voices are rising up again. Now, rather than reflecting on these and other horrendous acts perpetrated by the Obama Obama administration, however, much of the Democratic and liberal bases are looking back on the Obama administration as the good old days. They and many others are demonstrating en masse against the powers that Donald Trump now has access to, ignoring the fact that not only did Obama himself use those powers in many ways, his administration created and expanded them for the next successor. Now, the role of the independent press during times of great political upheaval is to wade through the chaos in order to provide the public with hard-hitting truths that transcend party lines. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter if a Republican or Democrat is in office. The policies from both parties will continue to be the same. But we can't begin to fight against the looming attacks against our civil liberties and the human rights of people everywhere, not just in the United States, without first acknowledging the crimes of previous administrations, Republican or Democrat, and the powers that they expanded for their successors. If there's going to be any genuine resistance to the Trump administration, then we have to be prepared for what tools he now has available, thanks largely to the former Democratic and Republican administrations before him, especially former President Obama. With large swaths of America ready to protest, it's time for the real anti-war movement to seize on that momentum and push for real change that actually continues to create conditions for a more peaceful world. It's time to empty out the dictator's toolbox and dismantle the system that's brought us to this point so far. To hope in change, we say, welcome back to the revolution.